Welcome back to another episode of On Brand from Muse by Clio. I'm Nicole Purcell, the president of the Clio Awards. And right here next to me, I have my co-host, Mr. Tim Nudd, editor-in-chief of Muse by Clio. Hey, Tim. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Nicole. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a little hot out, but I'm surviving. And right now I'm not allowed to have air conditioning on while we're doing the show. So just saying.
Yeah, it's warm here too. But
who are we talking to today? What's going on today?
Well, we have a great guest today. It's Tom Klein. He's the CMO of Mailchimp. Everybody at this point, I think, knows Mailchimp. They're a really creative brand. They're one of the great content marketing brands out there today. They've also been doing a lot of really interesting things during COVID, and Tom himself has had quite an interesting career arc. So very excited to welcome Tom Klein.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Nicole. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Tom.
And this is Milo. So just so you know, he likes to join in sometimes, and this is who I've been quarantining with. But every start of the episode, I always love to ask, where are you? Who are you living with? How is work from home going? Any personal insights that I can find out about too?
Sure. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, with my husband, who is he's in another office.
Oh, that's good.
We have dueling offices.
Nice.
We have a high school senior, actually a graduating high school senior daughter.
Oh my God! Congrats.
Who's gone through a very memorable high school thing, right? And we're trying to prepare to go to college starting in August. So
wow.
The adventure begins.
Wow, yeah.
During these times, how has Mailchimp had to pivot with everything that you guys are doing? How are you handling everything?
Well, the way I think about it is, like, first of all, my team, but also my customers. So from a customer perspective, it became very urgent for people to get online and to, we represent millions of small businesses globally. And so a lot of what we saw was the need to sort of reinforce our original purpose of, like, we are there to empower small businesses. So we felt like, hey, we need to help them, right? And that's what our real focus was. I think probably from a team perspective, it was a challenge of just, we are a very present company, in terms of just the amount of, because we don't have a sales team, right? Which is unusual, right? We're about 1,200 employees. Because we don't have a sales team, everybody's together. So it's a very kind of a present place. And so the change was really significant to just say everyone is working remotely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, I would love to talk to you a little bit about your content marketing and how that's evolved during COVID. I know you guys just released a new video series called Essentials, which I believe you produced with Vice. I would love to talk to you about that. We actually have the trailer of that to show, so maybe we can show the trailer first, and then we'll chat about sort of what that's all about.
Sure.
My business is not what it was on March 15th.
We're a city of service workers with no savings at all. And now COVID-19 has made it all worse.
You have to be in community with one another. You find a way to be in community with people who are going to help you. I know that I'm making a bigger impact in the way that I'm working now.
Oh, I haven't watched it yet, but it looks very cool. And I'd love to hear sort of how you guys produced it. And also how it fits into your marketing strategy.
Yeah, that was entirely self-shot. I think there's a great theme of the notion of constraint, right? And how does constraint generate creativity? Mailchimp itself was founded in a recession. And there's a lot of innovation that happens under the constraint of either people have lost their jobs or obviously this is a very unusual constraint that we're not familiar with of the pandemic. But and also it was the notion of constraint it felt like a compelling sort of hey, how do we get our story out however we need to tell the story, right? And telling the story is a way to kind of connect with customers and help people understand that they're not alone in the world, right? And if you're trying to run a business, you're not alone. And at some level, as a brand, we're trying to help communicate that we get you, right? We understand that this is what you're going through, and stop there, right? It was very much like, we get you. This is a way for us to say that I think there might be pearls of wisdom and help, whether it's in Essentials, you won't find anything that says how to use Mailchimp, right? It's mostly, hey, our way of kind of connecting with people, and in some ways, what's fascinating is we also use the notion of constraint. Constraint just said, hey, we hosted a film festival with South by Southwest called Support the Shorts, which was some stories they need to get out there, they need to be told. And similarly, it was a way for us to kind of connect with creators, right, in the world, and say, hey, we have a constraint as internally of like, how do we, it's hard to make things now, right? Because it's very difficult to get everybody together and tell your story, but we have all these wonderful stories. Why don't we just create a home for them? And at some level, it's just pure generosity, right? I think the notion is we feel like if there's a way for us to connect with our customers and just have a generosity of spirit behind it, it's all good, right? It's a way for us to connect with customers and prospects and just put good things out into the world.
Yeah, it's more like it's just sort of an emotional support as much as it is practical support, right, for small businesses.
Especially in the Essentials, that was a way to show that. And same with, we right before the pandemic sort of struck in the United States, we bought a magazine called Courier. My experience through the pandemic has been through the lens of, we just bought a little business. And so my experience has been, hey, how do I actually do all the things that a small business does? And how do we create, how do we continue to get the word out of like what are other people doing, right? You become intensely interested in either, am I doing it right? Are there things that I haven't figured out? If I'm a restaurant, how do I sell to go? How do I get into a grocery store? How do I sell drinks to go? I mean, all these things that were just like, that were very helpful that we could provide, and Courier was a great way for us to do it. And so I think that the big theme here of the constraints are the constraints. How do we actually help people be creative and reconsider and stay motivated to kind of continue?
Yeah, okay. I believe Essentials is under the Mailchimp Presents platform, right? So,
it is.
Yeah. Okay. And I'd love to hear more about the Mailchimp Presents, because it's such a unique way to go about communicating what you do. And I'm wondering how much you invest in content versus traditional advertising, and also how you sort of measure how it's performing over time.
There's a lot in there. You can keep me honest. So I mean, the thinking behind Mailchimp Presents is to sort of empower the small business underdog, and we see it as, it's definitely much bigger than a software platform, and it means that I need to speak to basically the whole person, which is, I need to provide tools, I need to provide inspiration and motivation, I need to provide education, and that all fits underneath. That's all what Mailchimp is about. Behind Mailchimp Presents is this notion of, hey, we really need, as opposed to making sort of traditional commercials, right, of just buy my thing, which is which is as hard, or sometimes it feels even more difficult, right, than creating something like Essentials.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to that, creating things that have a longer life, that speak more directly to both prospects and to customers, felt like a type of content that we needed to be creating. I even have a hard time with the word content because it makes everything feel suspect, right? But you understand what I'm saying. So Mailchimp Presents is intended to be sort of a type of content that's inspirational and motivational, right? That we don't talk about it's essentially, how do I help people understand what is it like to be an entrepreneur? You know, how do you help them communicate what is life like in a small business? And how do you help people stay motivated? I think if you listen to a lot of our podcasts, we have a season 2 of a podcast that's coming out that's called Going Through It. And going through it is sort of what it always feels like. You know, I mean, you know, and there are times when every entrepreneur is going to face the desire to quit. You know, and it's a whole podcast of like, tell me about the time when you were going to quit. And it's a way to kind of connect with people and help them understand that there's a journey that they're on. And again, we understand what that journey is, and we're going to help you stay on your path as much as we can.
Yeah.
Talking about podcasts, you guys have been a pioneer in that, starting with Serial years ago, being the presenting sponsor. So was that a critical time for the brand, like a big moment that helped push you even further? And is that made you stay with, you know, podcasts and working with them and advertising with them?
It was a huge moment.
Yeah.
Crazy moment. Yeah, it's the kind of thing, you know, it felt like something from outer space. You know, I think the ad itself was like a person on the street ad, and the person, one of the people that was interviewed, mispronounced Mailchimp as Mailchimp.
Oh.
Right. And I you know, and the thing is, it came back, and certainly the people said, "Do you want us to do this over again?" Right? And you know, you know well enough, 99% of you know, brand marketers out there would say, "Yes, pronounce my, you know, name correctly." And so, but we said, "No, go ahead and run with it. It's really funny." And it turned into, and oh, by the way, also, so the execution of the ad itself was weird, right? And really stood out. And then, candidly, it's just the quality of the storytelling behind Serial was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that they had gotten to know Mailchimp through sort of NPR sponsorships, and when they knew that we were, you know, we would sort of roll the dice, right, on someone who's a great storyteller. And, you know, that was a jackpot.
Yeah, that really was. And like, from that time, what have you learned about advertising with podcasts? I mean, we're very interested, especially Tim here, because we will be starting our own podcast this fall. So definitely would love to hear your thoughts from when that happened. Was that luck with Serial? And then what did you learn from that?
Well, we'd actually been in, you know, sort of very early in podcasts, and just believers in it because it is a remarkably intimate medium. Yeah. You know, it's just, it's very long tail. If, you know, and certainly our heritage in email means that we love stories, right? So it's all about storytelling. And I think as a scrappy upstart of our own, it just felt like, what's a way for us to sort of tell a story and actually find great storytellers, and be associated with them. And I think that was, you know, there's a podcast that was called Ear Hustle, which was a podcast with inmates in San Quentin.
Oh,
you know,
that
so
sounds interesting.
You know, but it got so popular that we're like, oh, we're sort of the scrappy storyteller sponsor, right? And so I think it's exciting to see that, you know, people are catching on to podcasts. and it's a great medium. And I wish you great luck in your new podcast, because I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, with all of this great, media that you're putting out there, content, are you working with anyone like outside of the company, any creative agencies? Is this being all the ideas coming from in-house? How do you guys work?
Oh no, I mean we have an in-house team, and we're very open. And I think some of what we've learned is that if I'd say probably part of the heritage of being co-founded by a designer is that there's an ethos inside of Mailchimp to essentially generally give a brief and then stay out of the way, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that means that we have a lot of respect for creative storytellers. And I think when people find out that that's the truth, right, and they're given a lot of leeway, we're a fun partner to do something with. And so there's a wide range of people that we work with, and Vice is just one, but I think even within Vice, the experience as an advertiser versus a content partner can feel very different.
Mm.
I love the tone of voice of Mailchimp. I want to go back and show a spot from a few years ago. The serial execution kind of led to a whole big campaign that you guys did with Droga 5. Did You Mean Mailchimp? Maybe we could show the Mail Shrimp commercial here quickly.
How can I be who I'm meant to be? Become my dream, follow my destiny. I'm more than a sandwich made of shrimp. I believe in myself. I'm not afraid, I'm not a wimp to be like you. Mail boy, dressed like you. Mail boy, and one day I know I'll become Mail shrimp, mail shrimp, mail shrimp, mail shrimp, mail. Show me that you love me. Mail shrimp, mail shrimp, mail.
I mean, certainly not what you would expect from an email marketing company in general. But I would love to hear kind of your thoughts on creativity and how it drives business.
Yeah, we're I love that song.
Very catchy.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what we're doing and that short right there is really, it's like a love letter to creative people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again, just based on our heritage, that's how we have built the brand. Is said it's not everybody in the world. I think everybody, there's sort of a creative spirit inside everyone. And I think we have really focused on creatives as almost like a lighthouse customer, right? And saying, because ultimately if you're creating something in marketing, the creating part is hard, right? And I think the commercial part is super straightforward, and the creative part is where the magic happens. And so our view of it is that, while there's as our customers get larger and more sophisticated, there are lots of sort of left brain logical reasons about why you do things. But the special part that stands out and is ultimately most important for our customer is the creative part. So we saw it in sort of two ways. One is when you look behind anything, there's a creative person who's driving it, if it's something special. So a lot of times when you look inside of a successful small business, there's a creative spirit there, whether they see themselves that way or not, and they feel liberated to be creative and liberated to kind of connect with their customer. So it's an important lesson of differentiation for our customer, that you can be yourself. There's a precursor to that ad, which was being yourself makes all the difference. It was an outdoor campaign. And this whole series, the Did You Mean Mailchimp campaign was Mailchimp being itself, right? Seeing like, how do we sort of, model the behavior that we want our customers to exhibit? Because we know if you're a small business, if you're not creative and if you don't stand out, you're not likely to make it, right? I mean, so it's really sort of from a small business perspective, it's super important that you have the confidence to be distinctive.
Yeah. I mean, I love the freewheeling sort of creative aspect, but at the same time, I feel like Mailchimp must be a business that's very driven by data. I mean, you have enormous amounts of data that you must be sort of looking at a lot. Can you talk about how data sort of affects your marketing strategies in addition to the creativity?
Absolutely. So yes, we have. we're in the data business. You can actually think of Mailchimp as a data analytics platform that sends email. Like in the old days. Now it's the data analytics platform that does, makes social posts, sends surveys, makes websites, sells domains, landing pages, buys ads. It does all these things because ultimately what people want to see is, how did I do? Is any of this stuff working? And so I think that, it's a message for our customers. What we're trying to do is simplify all of the mechanics of it. And so ideally, if you'd said, it's like a multivariate test is what I always tell people is, hey, if you want to have a tame one, that's fine, right? But we want to create a system that would say, do some wild ones, do some things that you wouldn't expect that are going to be great. Let yourself, kind of run wild and be creative. But we want to have a system that will tell you, did that one work or not? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're sort of trying, in some ways, I guess we're trying to play it both ways, which is ideally the analytics and the systems and the data should be liberating to creative people. It shouldn't feel like whatever chains or whatever. It should be like, well, I can do anything, right? Because I can put it out in front of the world and see if it actually works, and especially in the world of sort of organic postings and social media. There's a lot of just good practice of, hey, post it organically before you boost it, right? And I think it can be very liberating for a creative person or for a marketer.
Well, talking about interesting, we're going to go into your history a little bit, your career arc, which let me make sure I'm getting this right. So you started in finance. You were at Nabisco, Chanel. You ran a software innovation lab. And then how did you come here? What is the line that you got to come here? Like, that's really a mix of things that I've never seen before.
It's a totally weird.
Okay, as long as you know.
It's totally non-standard. I think I have been interested in the intersection of marketing and technology forever, right? So before the browser came out. So it's been a very, the notion of data to support marketing, is in my lifetime, right? It's software and technology sort of ate marketing. And so it's been an incredible sort of journey. I think there's some things that are in common, right? Especially as it relates to creativity. Mm-hmm. My time at Chanel weirdly feels connected to my time at Mailchimp. And some of that is just an incredible focus on the customer, a private company, right? Mm-hmm. And in some ways, the freedom to think beyond just the next year, right? How do I think, 5 years down the path? How do we put things in place today that will be valuable, several years from now? So a lot of it has to do, I hadn't really thought a lot about it before, but the connectivity of a private company and a degree of customer focus, I see Chanel and Mailchimp as very similar.
Interesting.
I've made just a bunch of weird decisions to go back and forth. But a bunch of things. I think the thing that brought me to Mailchimp, in the software business, I had gotten to know somebody who was at Mailchimp and gotten to know the co-founder and CEO. Mm-hmm. I thought that, and we'd done some innovation work and done a bunch of different things. And I thought that we were going to just talk about a project. And he said, no, it's a little bit bigger than a project.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
very cool.
Nice, yeah.
Tom, I know it's difficult to really predict anything at the moment, given the way the market is and the world is at the moment, but I'm wondering if you sort of look out the next sort of 6 to 12 months of what Mailchimp is looking at and you know, how your strategy and your creative work sort of might evolve over the next year or so.
And so I think one of our challenges that we're trying to address creatively is you know, we have more things, right? I have Courier, which just came online. So I now have basically a lot of journalistic content around it's not a Mailchimp Presents level in terms of just pure inspiration. It's a little bit more roll up your sleeves. Hey, this is how you do it. Or if you have to let somebody go in a small business, how do you do things like that? So more sort of general business content. And so I think what I'm looking to do is try to bring more sense to how do all these stories work together? And I'd say probably more specifically, there's more sort of specialness inside of Mailchimp, the application, that I'm looking to sort of tease out and say, okay, this you know, how do I pull out all the cool stuff and just show that, right? Mm-hmm. And say, this is sort of what you need to know, as opposed to all the gory detail. And I think a lot of our mission from a product perspective is to just make things simple and make it work. But at the same time, you know, we have a scale to actually make people more successful. And I would say one of the most exciting things is we are finally to the point where we can actually make, in some ways, use technology to improve the creative output. Mm. Sounds like heresy, I know. But, you know, if you've been on the internet, there's some pretty, you know, people need help, right? And so I think trying to raise the bar for everything that comes out. And so I think it's that mix of how do I continue to tell the story, weave these pieces together, but also in some ways get more granular to help people understand what is it that we actually do, because the scale is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again so much for talking with us today and for helping the small businesses out there. I think that's amazing all the time, and especially now. Obviously, Milo has never been more engaged in an interview before, right, Tim? So you're very lucky. He's been involved.
My pleasure. Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Nice to chat with you, Tim.
Good to chat with you. All right, very cool.
I know it was a little involved. I apologize. But
no worries.
Happy that we were able to talk to Tom, and you know, I love the whole small business thing, as I said before. So that was really amazing.
Totally fascinating take on creativity as well, and their content is always.
And I can't wait to watch Vice now and see those stories.
Definitely. All right,
thanks,
Nicole.
Tim. Bye.
And thank you guys for watching. For the latest creative news, check out Muse by Clio every day. And we're also back every Thursday with new episodes of On Brand. Thanks for watching and enjoy the weekend.